Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. Have a very special guest today, and it may be a tough interview for me, but let's see how it goes. My wife, Carol, is with us today. Carol, I'm glad you were able to make it. So one thing that we wanted to talk about today is because Carol's getting an award. She's getting it from Phyllis Schlafly. This weekend, it's for Homemaker of the Year award. So there's been a lot of times over the years that she traveled with me and I got awards and pseudo awards and all kinds of things, sometimes things thrown at me and sometimes praises. But this time, and on Saturday night, she'll be receiving this award in St. Louis. So this is something that we wanted to express. So I guess you're anxious to tell us all about what this means to you. Are you? What was your reaction when Phyllis called and asked you to do this? Did you say, "Oh, great," or did you have to give it some serious thought?
Well, I guess I gave it mostly thought about getting from Texas to St. Louis, and but no, I was very pleased and was glad to do it because I believe in the homemaking being very important, and I just think new life is very important. It all goes together.
But you know, you're comfortable with being a homemaker, and I have praised you for it because you have made a home and significant contribution in raising our kids and all of this. But you know, we're probably in the minority. If you go out and do a survey, they don't generally say, "Oh, a homemaker." That's somebody that doesn't work. They just stay at home. And so the politically correct people aren't going to be flocking, to St. Louis to praise Phyllis Schlafly, nor you for being a homemaker. And yet, it seems to me, of course, pretty darn important.
Well, maybe they will come because it is important.
Yeah.
A lot of brides come to me and tell me, ask me, how they can have a marriage that's going to last, and what to do and how to raise children and different things. And I have a few little things that I tell them that I think are just absolutely important. And know your children's friends, and an evening meal where everybody can attend. I have one friend who believes in this sincerely but never can do this because of the work schedules, and they have family breakfast, and I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, it does seem like it's a lot different than when we were raised compared to the average family now, and it has some economic problems to it too because of the consequences to the two individuals. The spouses are both working, and conditions are such that there are a lot of single parent homes. So that does contribute a whole lot. And I like to talk about all the serious things in the world and fixing up the Federal Reserve and foreign policy and all. But the plain truth is deep down in my heart, I'm in total agreement with your efforts, because it is the home that makes the difference. Because if you look at the statistics, there's no doubt that the kids do much better if they have a home. But I wanted to refresh our memories about starting our first home, and it was early on, shortly after we were married. The first place we lived in was Gettysburg, and then for a short period of time when I was still in college, and then of course we went to Pittsburgh. But when I left Pittsburgh, I was on my way to medical school, and we drove there. But we bought a house. Fortunately, we were able to get a house, and here's a picture of this house. And it was a mansion for us, mainly because we had 4 rooms, not 4 bedrooms, but 4 rooms in our house. And also, you knew how much I would enjoy having a yard. You can see there was at least a yard around there. So this of course, was for us a very special place because it wasn't a house. It turned out to be a home. And I think, we had our family, my parents, and even your grandmother came here to see.
My grandmother called it the dollhouse. It was powder blue. I don't know if you get the color there, but it was powder blue, and it was just It was perfect. The yard was much, much bigger than the house, though.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
the backyard was
Yeah,
very
nice.
big.
Well, what's the picture on the left there? It looks like two individuals that we might be able to recognize.
Well, that was bringing our firstborn home from the hospital 57 years ago.
Right. And,
Very special time.
matter of fact, we had not even, and that was Ronnie, and he was not even, had not even entered the house by that time. We were just there, and I think your mother and dad were there, and they took some pictures. But I think it turned out to be great because we did so many different things in the yard. We had other medical students come over. But looking at the house right now reminds me of a few things that were a little bit crazy. You see that front window on the left. One time, see, there was no basement because underneath the house it was about 3 foot high, and I was worried about some termites eating away at our house, so I had to crawl in under there, and it was only about 2 feet high right under that window. But we solved that problem, and the house still stands today. So it was fantastic as far as I was concerned, and we actually got involved in the dog business and raised some dogs.
I was going to say you crawled under that house one time to retrieve.
I didn't tell you about it. You'd have panicked.
Retrieve a litter of puppies.
Yeah, too. But we raised dogs, and I remember one time we were desperate to get $25 to drive to Pittsburgh, and at the last minute we sold one of our collie puppies. So, but anyway,
they were pretty.
Yeah, they sure were. Now we moved a lot in the first several years. In the first 11 years, we were married in 57, and then by 68 is when we moved to Texas and settled, and I opened up my medical practice. But we were first at Gettysburg, then we were in Pittsburgh, then we were in Durham, and then we went to Michigan for residency. Then the military told me I was going to Texas. Then we go back to Pittsburgh for more medical training, and then finally go down and move to Texas. But you were asked one time to write something about this subject, and to put into a political brochure or something I've kidded you about over the years. It was a cookbook, and I said, nobody wants to read your silly old cookbook and look at pictures. But you wrote something in there about these years in general, and you described it, and some people were impressed with this because some people would have described this as sort of a struggle, getting around and getting it done. You were keeping a house together and worked on the side, a lot of times worked in the house, teaching lessons. But you described this as fun-filled years, and I think, boy, I guess she wasn't too upset with all this moving around, but what was in your mind when you thought it was fun-filled years instead of me saying, hey, this was hard work?
Well, the piece I wrote,
that was for the cookbook.
For the cookbook. Everybody liked that, and everybody had talked about it because they were fun-filled years. We didn't have any money, but we didn't really need it. I mean, we would get together with friends, medical students, and I can remember them playing cards and just doing silly things. And I remember one night we had medical students over, and we were, I think, playing bridge, and I had a prize for the winner and the loser. And the loser got a goldfish, and he said, Carol, I don't care about your old goldfish. And he picked it up and wiggled it like this, and he put it in his mouth and swallowed it. But then I found out I had been serving fresh vegetables and things, and he had picked up a carrot. The fish was still in the bag, and he chewed it. I mean, he just chomped down it. Oh, people still remember it.
The cookbook is rather famous, and you became well known about the cookbook. But I remember very well when you decided to do this, and that was in 1996, after I had been out of Congress, for 12 years, and decided to go back. But we were getting a lot of heat, and you wanted to do this, and that's when I would kid you about, this is sort of silly. But what was the thing that was bothering you that you thought you needed to have a different approach?
Well, my story was called The American Dream, and I wanted people to know that we were, you know, a real family, and that you had worked hard and I had worked hard to have your medical practice, and how much you cared about the country. And they were putting terrible things out, like you wanted kids to have drugs, and I said, oh, this is awful. We have to let them know that we have children and that what they're doing. And I know when we were first married, you said you'd take care of the government money and I'd take care of the household money.
Oh, yeah. I think you won out on that
and
deal.
you would take care of the government and fix it, and I would take care of the kids. And I think I've done a pretty good job with the kids.
You know, if you compare the budgets, I was in charge of the federal budget. It hasn't done well with me there or away, but our checkbook is balanced, so
That's right.
I would say
That's
that
right.
you've
That's
done
right.
a much better job.
Yes.
But, you know, there were times when you were worried about moving away and moving to Texas away from your home, but you know, I made some rash promises, you know, like it wasn't quite like jump on the airplane anytime you want, but I thought it was a pretty bold promise that we could actually use the telephone once a week, you know, call home. But anyway, it worked out quite well. But you know, the thing is, I think that we're facing in this country today is probably the de-emphasis, you know, on a home. There are houses and there are buildings and there are apartments and there's all kinds of stuff going on, but it's back to what is important in raising kids. And I think one of the things I marveled at when we had 5 kids to raise was the fact that you knew where they were and you knew the names of every one of their friends, and you still know the names of most of their friends. At the same time, there's you know, no downside to this, because people you know, welcome the idea that they could come to our house and be there too, which meant that you were able to keep up with them when they didn't even have a cell phone, and that was pretty amazing.
Well, I just thought it was important to keep up with kids and to know their friends and have them want to come to our house, and so that I could spread not only what we were doing and the love that we had in our family, that we could spread it, you know, with their friends. I remember one night as a young boy, and I think his mother had passed away, and he loved my brownies, and he arrived like at 10 o'clock one night, and he said, "No brownies?" And I said, "Oh, I bet I can whip them up real quick."
Yeah.
So I made him some brownies.
Well, you know, I've made comments over the years in campaigning about my decision, you know, to run for Congress the first time, which was in 1974. And I truly was believed in my own heart that I was on a lark, because there was just no way that, you know, the odds were just utterly remote. Texas was a Democratic state and all these other things totally against it. So when I told you that, what was your reaction?
He said to me, "Don't worry, I'm not going to win." He said, "You can't run against Santa Claus. I'm not going to give them anything, only their freedom." And I said, "Ron, if they hear you, you will win, because people deep down in their hearts are searching for something like this." So.
Well, I guess it turned out that you were more correct in the assessment than I was,
Yeah.
because I truly, matter of fact, even up as late as 2008, you know, what I expected to come from, you know, the opportunities in the career in politics was that it would just be a very, very minor, you know, footnote. But it turned out that a lot more people were reached during these campaigns. But what did you find? There had to have been some times when campaigning was annoying. You know, it annoyed me at times. I got tired. But what were the things that bugged you the most?
Well, I never got tired of the people and answering questions and just talking with them, because they wanted to share with me why they were supporting you and what they felt was wrong. And the only thing I didn't like is when the press would mess a few things up and report it wrong, and then they say, you know, days later, "Oh, that was a mistake." Well, that doesn't matter. It's already been written as a mistake, and it's hard to erase something that you've already done.
Yeah, and I know you used to get in and sort of manipulate things a little bit, because somebody told me that the message was out on the campaign trail they couldn't get to me, which sometimes was difficult, you know, if there were a lot of people around. Go see Carol. Go see Carol. If you can't get your picture or something, Carol will take care of it. So they would come and say you, and it was pretty hard to turn your request down and say, hey, this person, and they were hard. To me, it was heartbreaking, because some of these individuals traveled a long way. You'd hear stories like, you know, I just drove 300 miles, you know, and all I want to do is get a picture or a signature. It was one of the reasons why we did go out, and like you say, it was the people that made all the difference in the world.
Well, I wanted all the people to be able to say they shook your hand, you know. I mean, that was important. I can remember one of our grandchildren we had on the stage one time, and speaking of getting people, they'd say to him, come here, and he'd run over to the edge of the stage, and they'd say, you know, see if you can get him to sign this, and they'd hand him a book, and then they'd send him back through the crowd.
They were using the grandkids, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if anybody deserved the Homemakers Award for the year, it's you, I believe. I think you've made all our houses a home, and you've done such wonders and with our children, and we're real proud of all our kids. But I do want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I know this program was a little different. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something along the way. It certainly was fun to do, because it refreshed our memories of our first house that became our first home, and all the things that we have done in politics. And actually, if you say, boy, she was very much involved, I don't think you've heard the whole part about it, because she was very, very much involved. And she sometimes would say, you know, I'm not much into politics and I'm not into these issues. But her instincts were very good, just like advising me in the first campaign that when I said there's no way I was going to win, and she said, you know, that's not right. You better be careful if you think that's going to happen. So it's been good. Of course, being out of politics now, we will still, as two individuals interested in all that we do. So yes, our children are raised, but you know, we have a few grandchildren and a few great grandchildren, and I'm pretty sure I can name all of them, but she can name all their birthdays, so that's pretty good. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the program. Come back soon to the Liberty Report.